Welcome back to the Smith Euro channel, guys. We are going to be getting the front subframe ready for the Mark II 3.6 swap. People know that you can use Mark II subframes, but there's no point. You gotta buy adapter mounts, you gotta have things that barely fit. It just makes no sense. Everything's older as well. So what you do is you find yourself any Mark III and you get a subframe. This is a Mark III VR6 subframe. Now, the only difference between a VR subframe and a 2-liter subframe is the stuff you put on it. Control arms, VR6, sway bar, VR6, but you can interchange pretty much anything. Now, our VR6 control arms and sway bars are 100% different. The VR stuff is actually about 1 inch further out, and they have a much wider ball joint. And then VR6 sway bars actually have a fitting that goes in the end of it, and then the sway bar bolts to the actual control arm. So VR6 stuff, like, you would have to have a VR6 knuckle. And unfortunately with a VR6 knuckle, the smallest wheel you can usually run is like a 15, maybe a 14 if you're lucky. What most people do in drag racing is you convert everything to the 2-liter stuff. Not only is it cheap, but you can run a 13-inch wheel. And you can see I have my track lights up here. So that's what's got to work. And then I have an array of 2-liter front knuckles, brakes, all that stuff up here. Some need to be rebuilt, some are good to go, some are for other projects. First thing we got to do is we have all these parts. I got to take them out the packaging, and I'll run you through everything we're doing. And there's everything right there. We're gonna be putting Mark III 2-liter knuckles on this, and the 2-liter knuckles are the same as the TDI knuckles. So here's the 2-liter control arm. Everything here is brand new. You can still get all this stuff brand new and extremely easy. I had all this stuff same day through my work. I have all the part numbers over here for you guys, so all that'll be down in the description if you want to follow this build and do kind of the same thing. With the 2-liter control arms, you can see right here there's a hole, and you can see over here there is not. So this hole is for what's called the lollipop, and this is the sway bar end link. The VR sway bar is technically larger than the 2-liter. So what I do in this situation is, well, first of all, many racers tell you do not need a front sway bar. I drive my cars on the street as well, and I plan to drive the 3.6 swap on the street as well. And originally when I did my Mark II, I did not have a sway bar and I did not have power steering, and that thing wanted to kill me. Anytime I got on power, it sent me over here or it sent me over there. I did the alignment 100% myself. We have an alignment rack at work, so everything was dialed in. I even dialed in camber, and it was just so uncontrollable, and honestly it was terrifying to drive, especially with a 424 ring and pinion. You don't want that much torque sending you into anywhere. And I also had a diff in the car, so keep that in mind. I then put a sway bar in and power steering back in, so that's what I plan to do with this one. And the sway bar I used is a VR sway bar. So what I'm going to be doing is the lollipop over there, that end link actually fits over this. So you slide it over this, get it to where it needs to sit in, and you cut off the excess. So that way you can still use a VR sway bar. It'll no longer be able to be used on VR control arms, but it'll be for a 2-liter and technically an upgrade. I do have R32 rear control arm bushings, so we are going to be cutting these out, popping these in. I'm going to show you how to do that at home, the easiest way I know how. A lot of people like poly stuff. I absolutely hate poly stuff for many reasons, mostly because if you ever get an oil leak and it gets on poly, it's trashed instantly. This OEM R32 mount, this will last you a very long time. So that's what's going in. Get some brand new boots. I have brand new inner tie rods, because why not? If you're going this far in it, you might as well change the stuff. So have all those as well. One more thing to note on the subframe. Now this subframe I got from someone and they have already kind of done things to it. Usually there will be a mount right here and it comes off and a big wad of metal sits in there and it bolts on, and that's called a vibration dampener. It does just that, just tries to keep vibration out of the cabin, because these are actually directly mounted to the chassis. So that's one of the ways they use to try to keep vibrations out of the car. Usually I cut them out, but as you can see, this has already been cut out. You use a spot weld cutter, rip it out. And then also you can see that this has already been repainted with like Pour 15. So really don't have to do anything with it. Now we'll just start tearing out the stuff we need to get rid of. First thing you gotta do is just pull the two 19s out of the front. 13 on the back where the sway bar goes. Then you just get a pry bar and pop them out. Now we'll lay them on top of each other and you can see that it's just a tiny bit longer. It's not a lot. And you see the ball joint is that much wider. It's just a little bit further out.
Yep, that's it.
Go ahead, baby.
Show them how it's done.
So the main reason I'm replacing this is because they have these really cheap ends on them, and also you might as well, like, the boots are a little ripped, but these are junk. I'll never use those. So everything was just zip tied on because someone had rebuilt it. Well, I can't use this rack. So now obviously this thing's bad. As soon as I pulled this boot off, ton of fluid, it's done. When you're redoing a subframe stuff, this is probably the worst thing you could find, is the rack's just 100% blown out. It wasn't leaking out of the boots, so I thought it was good. It's not the guy I bought it from's fault, because I bought it for the subframe and a rack happened to come on it, but it's cooked. So now I gotta take it all apart. Tie rod tool, put it on there, because a wrench wouldn't take it off, so I'm assuming that the guy Loctited everything. Get the other side off and then pull the rack off, and unfortunately this video is probably gonna take a couple days now to make, but I'll either have this one refurbished, or I'll buy a new one, which I don't want to do, or I'll buy a remand one, which I also don't want to do, or I'll go out and get the one off of the GTI, the porcelain blue, which I also don't want to do. So it's just all annoying, but we'll get it done. As you can see, I had to heat it up, but now it's coming off. Yeah, they use red Loctite on it. You can see all that in there. So I'm sure the other side will be like that, so we'll do the same over there. This side seal's blown out too. There's some pitting on this. It might be hard to see, but it's on the end, so they might rebuild it, but they also might not. But anyway, I'm gonna undo the 13s. There's 13s underneath, got our bolts, and then the nuts are up here. So we'll run all them out, and then we'll pull the rack off, and I'll just set it in a box or something, and I'll take it tomorrow to see if they can rebuild it. We'll just clean this up as best we can, and then take it out, purple power it, and rinse it off. So now we gotta get R32 control arm bushings in there. So you have to, even though this is all brand new, R32 one's just better. So you can just take a drill bit through it. So you can see there's a nice giant hole through there now. And since I'm doing this, if I was at work, I would just have an air hammer and just blast it out. Since I'm at home, I don't have it right now. So you can do it like this with a hacksaw. You put the hacksaw blade through it like that, because you got to cut through the aluminum casing. And you just cut for a while. Yeah, see how it just completely,
I don't know if I can see it.
how it's just totally moved from one another. It means it's 100% separate now. You can do it at home in the vise if you don't have a press. So just make sure that you push it on the side with the rounded edge, not the flat side. And you gotta get like a really big socket. This is a cheap Harbor Freight one. This one's a 48. So you can see it's going in pretty good going the other side. And we had to put a pole on the end of this because it's tight. The bushing's hitting on the backside right here, so you got to release it, and then now you got to do it just with the vise. What
time is it today?
It's 11:59.
What?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was 46.
So now it's even all the way around. It's fully in there. This one's good to go. So we last left off where we were doing the bushings. Got the bushings in, and we also found that the rack was bad. But next to the shop I have a rack rebuilder. So we got a brand new rack. Comes with boots and ends, so I'm just gonna leave these on. But yeah, we'll put that on in a minute. So now we just gotta throw the control arms in. And then on Mark III subframes, you see there's like this little U right here. Move your finger. So the bottom of the cup actually like goes physically locks in there. That'll fight a bunch of people. Alright, so just make sure you grease up this front bolt or put anti-seize on it. You gotta leave this front bolt loose, because this back bolt that goes into the body, if you tighten this up here, you'll have a really hard time getting this bolt in, because this bolt comes up and through and into the body of the car. So just leave that loose. Remember to tighten it when it's in the car. The VR6 sway bar, we have to lay it in place and get the 2.0 sway bar mounts to fit. We have it laid in place. So these are the 2-liter sway bar brackets where they'll actually go through like that with the push on top and bottom, and they'll go onto the sway bar. So I just want to mark where I have to cut the sway bar.
I need to tell you something.
Looks like 1 inch in is a good spot to cut. So I'll mark it on both sides and then take it over to the bandsaw and cut it. Now that it's cut, we just gotta throw the bushings on. Managed to get the sway bar in place with these new bushings. Honestly, that was like really hard. It's just the bushings are big and you can't get the bolt started. So it was a lot of pain, but I finally just got them both started and tight. So now you can see we can move the sway bar any way we need to. So now what we got to do is throw the 2-liter bushings back on. So obviously these aren't supposed to fit on a VR sway bar, so it's a little tight, but you can definitely get them on. Just grease them up, slide them on. So we're gonna put the sway bar, the upper bushing on. There's this little like beveled side of it that needs to go towards the washer, and then underneath it'll go on the washer, so the round side goes towards the control arms. See, clearance is just fully bolted down, and so there's clearance. So we're gonna leave it as is for now. And yeah, so the sway bar's in, have the room. If it hits, it'll just rub a little bit, but again, I have it like this on my other car and there's no issues. And you can see the excess, so as the controller moves up and down, it'll be able to slide a little bit in and out. A good thing to do right now would be to tap all the mount holes. They're M8 by 1.25. You just run a tap through them, clean them out, make sure they're all good. But now we're gonna throw the Remand rack on. This is a ZF rack. You'll usually, when you look up for rack stuff, you'll see that there's a ZF and a TRW rack. So the ZF racks are all cast aluminum, and the TRWs are two-piece, so it would be like aluminum right to here and then like a steel sleeve. So that's the difference between the racks. So the column side goes towards the driver. All right, so now you just gotta put on the end links. Just run some anti-seize or some grease all down these threads, start them all, and then also put them on evenly. The rack will have to be centered when we get it in the car. That's about an even amount of threads. What I'll do is just count how many turns I put in, and then I'll mark it somewhere, so then I know that it's halfway in, and I should be able to adjust the toe no problem. Point different directions. So the one pointing back goes on the driver's side or the left side, and then the one pointing back this way goes on passenger side or right side. See that everything is totally done. It's ready to drop into any Mark III car, and it's ready to drop into any Mark II car. Again, the reason why I'm doing this, and the reason why I've done all this stuff, is because we're putting a VR6. In our case, it's going to be that 3.6 that's over there. We're putting that in my Mark II Jetta Coupe. That's going to be an all-motor drag car. And when you have a drag car, you want the smallest wheel possible, basically so you have least weight, and you can put a much bigger sidewall slick on it. That's why we're doing these 2-liter control arms that'll match our 2-liter knuckles. That's all specifically so we can run a 13-inch slick. And with a 13-inch slick, clear all factory brakes. With my track lights, you don't even need a spacer. It just bolts right on, ready to go, ready to race at any time. And yeah, guys, so the rack was an unexpected expense. That sucked to do, but you know, oh well. Yeah, most of you guys will be pulling this stuff out of a VR car anyway. So you'll already have a rack, and you'll already have a VR6 sway bar. Now, if you pull a 2-liter subframe, you're pretty much, you're even better, because then you'll have the knuckles, you'll have the sway bar, the control arms, you'll have all that stuff ready to go. But this is basically a hybrid setup, specifically so we can go to the track and drag race with it. But this is totally rebuilt. I set the rear engine mount and the trans mount in. I'm not going to be using this stuff. It's obviously it's past it. We will be making solid engine mounts at some point, might not be at first. Yeah, hope to see you guys at the track. We're really shooting for this car making it to all the Volkswagen shows, which start in like July or June. June, that makes sense, because the first race of the year is Junebug, well, around me. So that's what we want to try to make it to. We'll try. If we can't make it in the red Jetta Coupe, we will make it in the green Golf, and we'll just see how that goes. But yeah, guys, remember we have a lot of projects on for this year. You guys probably saw that the Mark I VR6 car is on the lift, and yeah, it's a nice clean shell. I just got to take care of this, and as soon as that's taken care of, then we'll get to doing all the turbo stuff. But the next episode you should see on the red Jetta Coupe is going to be us installing this into the car, and we're also going to be installing the front cross member we have up there from a Passat or a Corrado, but that one's from a Passat, and we'll be throwing that in, and we'll get the knuckles ready to go, the 2-liter brakes, all that stuff. We'll have more stuff coming up on that, obviously. I have everything up here to do a rear brake disc conversion on the car. Everything's nice and new. We'll be using the Mark IV aluminum calipers. It's just a lot better for staging. It's really good to have good brakes on the back. Just if you guys like what you saw, like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.